Hi, I'm Clive with the AFM. Today we're going to go through a tech inspection you can expect at your next race. This is for this motorcycle, so it's pretty much universal. There are some exceptions if you have like a vintage bike or some of the street stock bikes. They might have a little bit of differences, so make sure you read the rule book specific to your bike. But we'll go through the basics. And a big key point is that tech inspection is not meant to be a hassle. You're basically getting your bike inspected by a professional, and the purpose is for your safety and to make sure your bike is put together right so you can go faster. So this is actually a good thing, and so we're going to go through each step. We'll start with the general cleanliness. The cleanliness of the bike tells us a lot. It tells us that you've inspected the bike yourself. It also allows us to see the bike more clearly because leaks will present themselves a lot better on a clean bike. It also gives us a general impression on how well you take care of your bike. We'll start with the bodywork. The bodywork should be affixed. Each one of the holes should be mounted well. A lot of times the little quarter turn Zeus fasteners will come loose, so we're gonna look at those. And then your numbers. Numbers are a big deal. They should be the correct size. When you get a sticker number online, sometimes they can sell you ones that look beautiful, but they're not big enough for the AFM. And so even on the side plates, we want to have the correct size. The other thing is the font should be correct and the numbering. So if you're a new rider, it should be yellow. If you're an expert rider, it's generally white. Black or orange background are for riders that have won a championship or been in the top 10. For the first tech inspection of the year, it's going to be a little bit more in depth than the rest of the year once your bike gets stickered. Part of that includes bringing your belly pan. And so you don't want to have it on the bike, but you do need to bring it to tech so that it can be inspected to make sure that it's got a drain plug, make sure there's no leaks. The drain plug should be secured, doesn't leak, isn't taped on or something like that. And so once the tech inspectors can see your belly pan, you don't have to bring it back the rest of the year. So we'll start at the front of the bike. We're going to look at the brake pads. You want to make sure you've got fairly new brake pads. It's not just for safety, but your performance is going to be better the newer they are. So we're going to check and make sure you have a good amount. We're going to check to make sure your brake calipers are safety wired. We're going to look at your pinch bolts for the axle to make sure that they are safety wired. The axle itself is safety wired. And then the tires to make sure they have a decent amount of life left on them. A lot of times if they don't, we'll say something and then the riders say, well, I'm getting to get them changed, which is fine. I would say that don't expect the tech inspector to know what pressure to run for your brand. They may know, but the best experts for that are going to be the tire vendors that we have at the track. They'll tell you the best pressure to run for the day, the weather, the track, the tire compound. So those guys are the experts. As far as the wheels, we'll check those, look for any signs of damage. If your bike has been in a crash, if you have especially an aftermarket wheel, you want to have those inspected just to make sure that they're safe. Okay, at the handlebars, first thing we're going to check, make sure that they're nice and tight. The triple clamps are nice and tight. We'll check the levers, clutch, the brake, make sure they're nice and tight. For the brake, we're going to make sure they're not spongy. They're nice and firm. We're going to look to make sure you've got a brake guard. We'll check the handlebars and we'll check the clearance. This is important that it's not just for your handlebars to clear the bodywork, but also your hands, because you don't want your hand hitting it, or worse, you don't want your brake lever hitting the bodywork, causing the front brake to lock up. We're going to check to make sure you've got adequate amount of brake fluid and that it's tight. That's important. While we're at the front, a lot of transponders are going to be mounted up here on the forks. Make sure you show up to tech with a charged transponder. If it's hardwired to your bike and it's on the switch, make sure the switch is turned on so we can check the light, make sure that's set. Another very important aspect with transponders, when you mount them to the forks, mount it up and then move your handlebars. A lot of times you'll mount it looks great with the bike sitting there. As soon as you start moving the handlebars, it might hit the bodywork. And if it's just held on by zip ties, and so it can break off on the track. Same thing with compressing the bike. If you have it too low on the forks, when the suspension compresses, that front fairing can hit it and potentially pop it off. So once you get a transponder mount on your bike, move the handlebars around, make sure it sits well. And while we're here, there's a camera on this bike. If you have a camera, it needs to be safety wired and your number written on it somewhere. That way, if it comes off, they know who to return it to. Many GoPros have ended up at the side of the track. Once it's been inspected, they'll actually put a tech sticker on your camera to show that it's okay. When it comes to the throttle, we're gonna check it that it has a proper return. Last thing you want is having it stuck at full throttle. So we're just gonna snap it really quick, make sure you have a good return. While we're here, we're gonna check out the gas cap. With the gas cap, it's gotta have some kind of locking mechanism. The OEM locking mechanism with a key actually works as well, but we're gonna just check to make sure you've got some way to secure it so it can't come unscrewed. Okay, when we look at the right side of the bike, we'll check the frame sliders just to make sure that they're tight. And the purpose of that is most of the time frame sliders are mounted using an engine bolt, and so we're gonna wanna make sure that's tight so that it means your engine's tight. Case covers are also required so that if you low side, you don't crack the case and spread oil over the course. We're also gonna check your oil filler cap is safety wired or has a clip, something to keep it from coming unscrewed. If we can visualize your oil level, we're gonna make sure it's within range. Very important, we're gonna check your oil drain plug to make sure that's safety wired and your oil filter is safety wired. These are very, very important. That can ruin everyone's day. Okay, while we're here, we'll check the exhaust system. We're gonna make sure it's tight. We look to make sure all the clips are in place, any bolts are mounted correctly. Then we're gonna move up to the rear sets to make sure they're tight. A lot of times we'll find these Allen head bolts loose. So that's why it's a good idea to use Loctite on them, but we'll give them a tug. This is really important. So a lot of times when we check a rear brake, people say, it's okay, I don't use my rear brake. Well, you will if you go off the track, because if you grab the front brake when you go off course, you'll lose the front and you'll low side or worse. So make sure you've got plenty of fluid, make sure that it works really well, put it on the stand, and just make sure you have good rear brake access if needed. Okay, so at the rear of the bike, we're gonna check to make sure your axle is got some sort of secured safety wire or a clip, something keeping it from coming undone. We're also gonna take a quick look to make sure it's aligned. The rear brake, we're gonna check, make sure that's nice and firm. We're gonna look at the meat on the rear brake pads. Something to keep you aware of if you aren't one of those guys that doesn't use the rear brakes is over time, those pads can become glazed over, and when you need them, they're not very effective. So even if you don't use them, you should change them every once in a while or pull them off, use some sandpaper to rough them up. Okay, coming around to the left side, we're gonna look at the chain. This is really important. The most common thing we see with the chain is that it's too tight. And so when we sit here, it might look like it's okay, but remember under acceleration and hard cornering, this compression makes the chain get tighter. And once that chain gets too tight, it basically takes the rear shock out of the equation and your handling is seriously impacted. So chain tightness is important. We'll check that. We'll check left side rear set. For racing, we do not allow kickstands. So this needs to be removed for any kind of AFM racing. While we're over here, we'll also check for case covers on the left side and your left side rear set. One more thing that's also really important with the rear of the bike is the little shark fin guard over the chain. These need to be bolted on. Zip ties aren't gonna cut it. Similar to the first tech inspection of the year when we want to see your belly pan, you also need to bring your gear with you. We'll check your leathers, make sure there's no holes, if there's any damage, doesn't compromise the safety. And we're gonna wanna make sure your helmet is up to the proper Snell date, which would be at least 2020. Your visor should be properly secured, no damage to the helmet at all. It should be in good shape. Once we finish inspecting your gear, you'll get a specific tech sticker on the back of your helmet. Basically what that means is for the rest of the year, you only need to bring your helmet to tech because it means we've already checked the rest of your gear. So that's the basics of our tech inspection. Once it's completed, you'll get an annual tech inspection sticker that you'll have throughout the year. But then each round, you'll have specific practice group numbers that you're assigned to placed on your bike after your tech is completed. Any questions? Please reach out to our staff. Everyone's friendly. They're there to help you. We're actually really appreciative that you're coming out to our races. This has been a detailed overview of the tech inspection. In reality, the tech inspectors aren't going to spend this much time on each bike. Ultimately, the responsibility falls on you. So please read the rule book, and we look forward to seeing you at the track.